Hello everyone and welcome back to another part where we finally go and bake our mesh. So we have to do a little bit of review and a few checks before we can go ahead and bake our mesh dough. So first of all, something we need to confirm. Look at all of your high resolution meshes. Then go to your display properties here and click on face orientation. So if it's all blue, it is okay. These inner sides are of course going to be red, but that's okay. The only thing that you don't want to have is something like here, where it's just all in the wrong direction. So you want to select them and hit Shift N to recalculate the normals, and that will fix that issue. So I think that was the only one we had, so we're good in that regard. Let's do the same check on our low poly version, just to be sure we don't have anything. And that looks good. Next thing we need to do is, it's not super required, but I think it will make everything cleaner. I just want to remove all the materials again on both low and high resolution meshes. So yeah, this is going to be a bit tedious, but I'm just going to go through them one after another and yeah, hide them as we go. So this is the next, hide, delete and hide, and this one here, there's nothing on it. It's just, since we'll be exporting and importing this into different applications now, I don't want other tools to interpret it in the wrong way. So I'm just going to clean it up, basically. Make it all the same. Here we go. A few more objects left. Alright, let's unhide that all again. Now we'll quickly take a look at the low poly. Here it should all be the same material. I think we can leave it if it's all the same, and in fact, yeah, no, it's alright. Let's leave it as it is. Here we have all preview, here we have nothing on it, that's okay. And now we need to do a few more steps. First of all, alright, here's the thing. Unfortunately, triangulation is something that is quite an issue. Because every you know that if you have a quad, basically, like this here, quads are hardly ever flat. Okay, this one was very flat. That was a very bad example. But let me find something more irregular. I believe that here we have some very irregular ones. Well, now they're hard to find. Oh, here we go. Look at this one, for example. Basically, you can see that these 4 points aren't flat, and that they have basically triangulation going on, and it's automatically choosing this direction, as you can see. It's almost as if there was an additional edge, it's just hidden. And depending on whether the application decides to do it this way or the other way, the shading will be strongly affected. So the only way we can assure that like our baking application and Blender interpret the mesh correctly is to just triangulate it on our side. And we'll still keep our quad mesh. We'll basically be rigging the quad mesh and then transfer the weights and the skinning data onto the the mesh that we converted to triangles. So we're not going to run into too much of an issue in terms of workflow, but we need to just triangulate it first before we move to baking. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select it all. I'll make sure that I save this in a separate version. I'll just call this triangles, whatever. Well, the bake one is my bake setup. Actually, before we do it, let me save it as is. This is what we send to baking in quads, but then I'll make a version called triangles. Now here in this version, I'm going to just select everything, all the low poly meshes. The high poly is okay. The low poly meshes I'll take, and I'll hit Control T and triangulate everything. And that should be it. That should save us from those issues that we would run into down the line. So with that done, it's now time to export our mesh, and we have one more issue to kind of think about, and I would like to try it without changing anything, but I'm pretty sure it won't work out. Wondering. Well, the thing is, we have 4 fingers here, right? And they're all on the same spot on our texture, so it's very likely that well, first of all, they will bake each other onto themselves, and secondly, they might overwrite the same spot. I think overwriting the same spot is not the issue, but they will probably capture in the bake the neighboring fingers, and that's a bit of an issue. So it would be, for example, a good idea to remove all of the fingers except for one. So this is our bake mesh anyway, so we don't care too much about it, although we need the triangle version to find one. You know what? I'm curious to see what happens. Although I know it will give an error here. Well, we could be lucky. Okay, let's try it. I'll select everything here as is and go to File Export. Let's export that as an FBX, and I will put it into my baking folder. I call it reg. This is going to be my low resolution FBX _ low. I only want to export the selected objects. We don't need to bake animations, and that is going to be all we need to do here. Then let's select all the high resolution meshes, and we'll again export them to FBX and call that reg high, same settings, export. Now let me talk about what tool I'm going to use. Sorry, I didn't even mention. Now I would like to use Substance Painter, but I don't have a license for that for private use. But I do have a license for Marmoset Toolbag. And I like the baking features in this software very much, so I would like to use it today. And I'm pretty sure you guys have tools on your own. Basically anything is fine. I mean, the process is basically the same. It's just that some tools give you easy like useful features, such as one that I'll show you here in a second. Also, Marmoset is now has updated their tool to a new version, Marmoset Toolbag 4, and I've never used it and I don't have a license for that, so we'll just stick with this old version. But basically there's so many tools that can do this. You could even use XNormal for this. XNormal is, I believe, a free one. Anyway, so the way it works here in this tool is you click on this icon here to create a new baker. In this new baker you click on the quick loader, and in here you basically load your 2 meshes. Alright, we had a little bit of a error message, but it seemed to work anyway. We got all of our meshes imported now. They're all looking good. And you'll notice that the tool automatically created folders. So each set of items, like arm high, arm low, will have its own baking group. And that's going to be really useful because that will make it so that they don't bake intersections onto themselves. Except for the fingers, where I talked already about how this is probably going to be an issue, but we'll try it out. Now, we really don't need to do much here. Basically, the way you use this is you first go to configure, you select that you want to bake a normal map. I'm not very familiar with the tangent space, but this just worked fine for me, to be honest. I believe they're very similar anyway. So I'm sorry that I can't give you more detailed information on this, but this should work fine. I have here defined my output. I'll just override it to where I've tested it before. And basically we can try and bake it now. Now I'll hide the high resolution mesh, and with this icon here we can preview the normal map. And as you can see, with just the press of a button, it's very beautiful and smooth and clean. We have a few artifacts that we need to take care of, and let's actually take a look at the fingers now. There we go. This is what I was afraid of. And we'll see if we can fix it with the settings, otherwise we have to modify the mesh a little bit. So here's what we can do. First of all, for the fingers, let's select them, go to the low thing here and see how the cage is quite large. I believe that if we reduce the size of that to barely be larger than, well, the fingers, maybe a little bit more. Let's try to bake that again here. And we were able to get rid of all of the artifacts that we had. Also, let's, yeah, okay, the resolution is correct. So yeah, that looks clean, looks good. I like how it's all very smooth. That will be very good for our cell shading. And there's one more feature that I want to talk about, which is something that I've only ever seen in Marmoset Toolbag, and I like a lot. There's a soften value, and if you put that to 1 and you bake it, see how all these edges are smooth. It makes a big difference. You'd be surprised. Yeah, I still don't like this, by the way. I really wish we would have merged this together, but at this point it's a bit too late for that. So we do lose a bit detail from that, so let's set that back to 0 and look at this edge here. So it is now a bit softer in these areas where we would like to have this, but at the same time we really need it for this edge where we didn't have a good high-res model. It really helps us out there, and even in situations like this where we get a little bit of an artifact here because of the way the high-res mesh was set up, it helps to smooth out some arrows that we otherwise would have to deal with. And there's one more artifact down here I noticed. Here this part isn't being baked properly, so we need to select this, go in here, and you'll notice that if we enable the high-res model, you'll notice that the cage for that doesn't really include the tip here, so we need to scale this up a little bit more to include that tip. Take it one more time, like that, and you'll see that the normal map all around should be perfectly fine. Actually, I think we have a little bit of an issue back here as well. Let's check one more time. No, that just is because it's very low poly. So that's going to be it probably. I mean, everything looks good. Look how clean everything looks here. This is a triangulated mesh. Just confirming that quickly here, and our texture should be exported to the folder we defined. So with that done, we'll go back to Blender and see if we can load this now. So we're going to display our low-res mesh. Let's go to the shader editor. Yeah, correct. And we won't be needing this anymore. But instead we'll be adding, we could do this here as well, but I'll add in the vector menu a normal map node. This goes to the normal map, and then we'll add an texture, image texture, and here we'll open our output file, which is this one here. Make sure now, this is very important, to change this to linear, because this is the linear data. And there we go. I just connected that, and look at how clean this looks. This is still the same low resolution mesh, And look at how little artifacts we have here now. I really am, believe me, if we wouldn't have triangulated this area, I tried that before, is full of artifacts and would have never looked this clean. So we won't be able to rig this easily with the triangulated mesh, but we will rig the quad mesh and then easily transfer the weights one by one to this very easily. So this is going to be our final mesh, and the texture suits it perfectly without a single artifact anywhere. This is, you know, really all the work that we put into it is showing now in this very moment. So I'm very happy to see it. Let's preview it a little bit better like this. And that's really all there is to it. I mean, you see, once again, there is a reason to why I use these external tools. I really wouldn't have been able to pull this off nicely in Blender. But here with this tool, it just looks very clean. It has nice padding around all the important parts, so you won't get any seams. And we've used 80% or so of our texture. What is going in this area? Let me quickly check here. What is this? Okay, well, we should be fine then. I have a feeling that this, and maybe this as well, yeah, these parts, I don't worry about them too much. I think the reason is that there is no mesh here to bake from. There's probably just an empty hole on the high-res mesh, so we get some artifacts there, and this should be fine as well. Yeah, this is just going to be that part. Alright, so none of these parts here have any real impact onto what we're doing here. Great, great, great. So there we go. I hope you liked the result so far. This is the result of our many hours that we put into it. Basically from this point onwards we just need to set up a cell shader and then we'll be looking at the face. So it was a bit of a shorter episode, but I think this is a great point to stop it for a second, and we'll look at the shader setup and everything else in the next one. So as always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.